Hello. You there? Zach?
Yeah, I'm sort of here. I'm still getting ready for other
Oh,
things.
no problem.
I started the meeting. I'll be right back.
No problem.
Hey there. Hello, Lisa.
Who's 818?
Yeah, so you see how there's a waiting room on? I wasn't aware.
Yeah.
This might be new. I did not.
So do I just admit them though as I see them?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and try that? I'm gonna also
Okay.
rename you.
Let's see, wait a minute. You.
Oh, that's a nice background that Bert has.
Mm.
I'm looking for a really good picture of San Cayetano as a background.
On which side?
Yeah, that's probably looking out Ed's side window.
So do you want San Cayetano with or without snow?
Either one, as long as it's good.
With or without flame?
Oh.
I have a couple of flame ones already.
Those. Although most of those for mine would be a little too close up. It wouldn't be appropriate.
Yeah. There was one that I had a few years ago that was from down in the Santa Clara River. It had some really nice low, almost ground clouds, and kind of after a rainy day, and it was really nice. But it was somebody else's image, and the photographer died, and I lost the digital file, so couldn't get it back. But it was an awesome one.
My wife has a screensaver that was taken with before sunrise early one morning when we had sprinklers going for frost protection, and the grove was full of low, very cold looking fog, but it makes an interesting image.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like we have everybody here. Our chair is
Hello,
here.
everyone. We have everyone. That's fabulous. Let's get this ball rolling then. You know me, let's get going. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Fillmore Piru Basin meeting for October 15th. I'm calling this meeting to order. And if everyone could find a flag, we're going to do our Pledge of Allegiance. So you can stand up. Hand over the heart. Ready, begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag and the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chair Long, for always providing us a flag.
I love to be outside, so it's just appropriate. We got our flag in the background for Camarillo. I should move it to find a flag in Fillmore or Piru. That probably would be more appropriate.
Yes, you should.
I did fly over all of the county today in a helicopter, and it is just
Nice.
Yeah, really beautiful. Nice to see water out there, actually. Let's do a roll call. Eva, if you could, please.
Okay, Director Holmgren. Oh, I see him there. Director Kimball.
Here.
Chair Long.
Here.
Vice Chair McFadden.
Here.
Director Minigan.
I'm here. Hi.
Director Pace.
Here.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Great, we are all together. Thank you very much for that. Next is our public comments. Do we have any public comments? I don't see any hands or anyone in the chat. No raised hands. So we will move to the agenda. Is there any changes on the agenda?
Chair Long, staff would like to pull agenda item 3D, the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget report. We discovered that we didn't fully capture all of the grant revenue in that report. And so we would like to correct that and bring that back at the next meeting, please.
Okay, so the motion would be to approve the agenda and remove 3D. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. It's been a motion by McFadden. And can I get a second? Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Second by Director Minigan. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any noes? Any abstentions? Motion has been approved unanimously. Thank you very much.
Director Long, just remember, since it's an online meeting, it's not in person, that you need to do roll call for your votes.
Oh, right. So I could do a roll call for my vote. That sounds good.
We know what this vote is. Going forward, maybe a roll call.
Sounds great. Thank you, Scott. That's why we have you here, so appreciate it. All right, so next item is our updates from our directors. We have our Fillmore Pumpers Association.
Here. So the board of directors of the Fillmore Pumpers Association met Tuesday, October 13th, this past Tuesday. We had a good discussion about future water use, and it was a more effective discussion than the response to our emailing Tony's questionnaire. I think we've identified sort of the key elements, and one of the problems is the Sigma requirement for 50-year planning horizon, and that sort of stuns everybody, and so we're going to try doing a poll of our members, and I'm thinking we may try a 20-year planning horizon, because much beyond that, I think it's just complete total guesswork, and not really productive. Then let's see. We had a request, and a number of stakeholders asked if we could do the stakeholder workshops via Zoom instead of a webinar, because the process of asking questions and having to type in means that it's hard to get the questions in contemporarily at the right time. And while you're typing a question, you can't be listening to what's happening in the meeting. So they asked if they could have an audio participation. So that's something to think about in our future ones. I mean, there's always a risk of although I don't think we're going to get video bombed, but there just was a lot of frustration in the ability to interact, and so that was asked, and then the boards of both memberships or both associations reviewed, discussed, modified, and approved a letter that then we submitted the following day to the GSA directors, talking about their concerns, their thoughts and ideas about the sustainable management criterion. And we didn't get that letter in time for consideration or inclusion in this this meeting, so it'll be for future. And I think that's pretty much it. Glenn will catch anything I forgot.
Gordon, I've got a question.
Yes.
Is that letter going to come to this board soon, so we have plenty of time to consider it before the next board meeting?
Director McFadden, yes, it will. So I could not include it in the agenda package because of the Zoom format of the meeting. And you know, if we've all been to public meetings where a letter came in and we provided a hard copy to the board members and had hard copies available to everyone else, but because it was yesterday, it wasn't able to be included in the package. So we will post it on the website. We will forward it to board members, and we will also put it in the agenda package for the next available meeting.
Okay, great. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay, Glenn?
Just kind of what Gordon had mentioned. We met, we discussed, the pumpers are working on getting their estimates, what they anticipate for future usage stuff from both basins as best as they can, trying to get that information. I know Tony has asked for that information from everyone. One of the, the big things is with that letter that we sent, just trying to figure out what are the right questions to ask so everybody understands what we need as we're preparing this groundwater sustainability plan. So there's a big push of trying to make sure that all of the stakeholders know what's needed, what questions to ask, what information is provided. So I think it's been a long time coming, but everybody's still very motivated to get their input in and making sure how the GSP is being prepared. Of course, time runs out, and that becomes our challenge, I think, is going to be for everyone. But I think we're seeing that we'll get more stakeholder input, if you will, and that's kind of one of the reasons for that letter that we've submitted.
I'm glad Lisa's online too, so she can hear about the public comments and the Zoom. Okay, environmental stakeholder, Candace?
Yes, hi. The biggest update is that we're going to have our Fillmore water talk for round 2. We were of the Integrated Regional Water Management Plans Disadvantaged Community Engagement Grant. And so that's going to be next Wednesday from 6 to 8, and it's going to be in a Zoom webinar format. and I will circulate the flyer to everyone. And we will be having Tony Emmer present on United's efforts in the basin, but also on the GSA. So he'll be participating at that water talk. It really is it's a community engagement and input event to get feedback from folks in disadvantaged communities, specifically on what their water needs and concerns are. This talk is more of a what is water talks and information, and then because of COVID, we aren't going back to the community with in-person meetings again. We've generated a survey, and the survey will be printed out and mailed to all residents. So that way we soliciting feedback from residents, just to get try and get across to the community when what we're noticing is social media outreach is sometimes not as effective as we've hoped. So that's another way we're trying to reach out to the community, get their feedback.
All right.
So you're going to send us notice, Candace?
Yeah, I'll send the flyer out for next week, Wednesday. And then there is already a website, and there's information on the survey process, which is round 2. And then everybody's going to be getting a mailer later in the fall. Okay.
By the way, your audio and video is better. Do you have different equipment or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can hear you clearly.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Next up is City of Fillmore. Tim.
The only thing that I would report is I found the workshop extremely informational. I mean, I know we already know the information. We talk about it every month, but for the stakeholders to see what I've been hearing all of you talk about for the last several months, it's just, to me, it seemed valuable, and I thought it was a success.
Good. Thank you for that feedback. Next is United Water. Ed.
Well, United continues the release from the Santa Felicia Dam. All us farmers are happy to see it go down the river beside us, and the wells that I work with now are at levels that are as good as they've been for a long, long time. So very helpful to the basins. That's all from United.
Okay, well, I had the pleasure of flying over the dam today and see the release. Piru looks really low, but I had a meeting with Mauricio at United this week, and I understood now that that is also helpful for slowing down the population for the quaggas mussels, because we cannot dredge because now it's in pyramids, so we can't do anything because pyramid is feeding and then it goes down. And I know that's a big important issue with our environmental stakeholders as well as our ag. So it looks like that process is doing well to cut the oxygen out of there so that they can not populate as well. And then once the storms, because storms will be coming someday, we'll be able to capture more water. So that was good. And that United had purchased water. I thought that was well to understand, and maybe it might be helpful at a next meeting or a meeting next year just to understand the projects that United is working on, just so that we have an understanding as we're managing our groundwater, what they're doing to work with upstream and downstream, and the new percolations. They're also doing a saltwater project with the Navy base and things like that. I think is important for all of us to hear as we're managing our basins. And so I'd like to throw that one out there. COVID is still alive, so I apologize. Not much can get open, but we are in the red tier, so that's great. And hopefully maybe in 4 weeks we can get in the orange tier. And I say that because students get to go back to school if their district says it's okay. in 14 days and it's in a different way, but it affects all of us, and it also affects the water usage and all that kind of stuff. So just an update on that for Executive Director update.
Chair Long and Board, good evening. Have a couple items to report. We recently completed the groundwater billings for the period ending June 30th. So as you know, that as a cost-saving measure, we wait until United is fairly certain of the data, and then use that data that's already been collected to send out the bills for the groundwater production. So those went out. So there was $213,000 and some change billed for that period ending June 30th. There is unfortunately still $52,872 that was outstanding from the prior period or before. That period ended December 31st. So we're still working through trying to contact and see what we can do with folks that haven't paid. We are still working with legal counsel to explore some of the options that we talked about last meeting, and we'll bring that back at a future meeting. We finished another grant period at the end of September, and we're working on our grant invoice number 6 and grant report, and those will be due before November 15th. Groundwater model, United staff is making progress on that. I saw Jason's son joined us a few minutes ago from his United Water Irvine branch. And so validation is ongoing with a target of completing that before the end of October. And staff is also working on documentation, and the target is to have all the documentation completed by the end of December or before. We are continuing to coordinate with Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency, had a meeting last week on the 7th, trying to make sure that all of our modeling and planning assumptions are based on the most realistic and updated information from that group. So they have been sharing their long-term plans with us. So they are sharing their water use projections for the 50-year planning horizon. They've shared the most recent planning information on potential reuse of some of that. And once we confirm some of those numbers, we can share the findings there. They definitely do feed into our planning effort, because what comes across the county line into our service area is pretty important in our planning. And as Director Menigan mentioned, I will be participating in the Water Talk in Fillmore next week, or virtually in Fillmore. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One note I forgot to tell everybody is that our county counsel for the county has retired. Leroy Smith has retired, and so we now have an acting county counsel, which is Michael Walker. And so if any of our GSA needs to talk with our legal counsel, it is now Michael Walker. We are doing an open recruitment for this position, because that's what we do. And so more will be to come, but we're all good and we have someone. I just want to make sure you guys knew who it was. Thank you. Next up will be legal counsel.
Good evening, Chair Long, members of the board. Thank you for the update on county council. I've been trying to get a hold of Leroy, and now I understand why I can't. So I will attempt to call it Michael Walker. Is that what you said?
Yes, and in the chat, I'll give you his email and stuff.
Thank you. It's nice to see all of you again. Yesterday, I got a call from Steve saying that he is not feeling well and asking if I could attend the meeting, and it's my pleasure to do so. I don't have any update, but if any of you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is GSP consultant, Tony Morgan.
Evening, everyone. Let's see if I can quickly share. There may be a little bit of lag time tonight. I'm at a remote location, so the little electrons have to bounce over one or more satellites tonight, I guess, than they used to. So did everything show up? Should say item 2D. Okay, very good. So this is a quick item for you. Just a preview of what's coming up tonight. Item 4A is sustainable management criteria. That's an update on what's going on with the ad hoc committee and some thoughts on that process. So I'm not going to jump into that in too much detail. Item 4B is discussion of potential workshop number 3, and Lisa Ballin will be helping us work our way through the discussions on what that workshop might be as far as agenda and timing for that. And then item 4C, I think Tony Emmert's leading the effort on about modifications to an agreement for the monitoring wells. I did want to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about the timeline and just remind folks of where we are in the process. The little green dot out there is approximately today. And so we've got a lot of things in the queue, a lot of things underway. One of the more significant things coming up is the completion of the groundwater model validation effort here. Into this month, first week in November, something like that. And if I've got that wrong, someone from United, Dan or Jason, just weigh in here. But I think that's a pretty reasonable time shot for that. And so all of these other things are underway. We're going to talk about tonight this possible workshop, water budget, historical and current, and on the groundwater model. So that's a later agenda item. And then a little bit of conversation potentially about future conditions down the road. But just letting everybody be fully aware of the timeline. There's a lot of activity going on with tech memos and SMCs and other things like that that we'll discuss as we move through the evening. But our general concept right now is still aiming for administrative drafts, GSPs in the February timeframe for the board's consideration. So that's all I have on that for right now, and we'll get into more of the gory details later on this evening.
Okay, thank you. Also, just to note, for some reason, this Zoom, your chat can only be with everyone, Zach or Eva. So I don't know who pushes the buttons, but if you can open up the chat, that'd be great so that we can have that working. Thanks, Zach, for letting me know, but for some reason, it seems like the private chat was disabled. So you'll have to chat for everybody, or hopefully you have their cell. So that's my information. Next up, thank you, Tony, is our consent calendar. It's items 3A through 3C. Does anyone have any questions on those? Seeing none or hearing none, can I get a motion to approve consent items 3A through 3C, noting that 3D was pulled?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Director McFadden. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Director Pace seconded. So any further discussion? Eva, can you roll call, please?
Yes. Director Holmgren.
Yes.
Director Campbell.
Aye.
Chair Long.
Aye.
Vice Chair McFadden.
Aye.
Director Minigan.
Yes.
Director Pace.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, motion is approved unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Next item is into our motion items. We have our sustainable management criteria. I'll pass it on to Tony Morgan again, who is working remote. I think all of us are in some fashion.
Just a little more remote than usual tonight, so. appreciate your patience.
Nice. I hope it's enjoyable.
We'll get back to vacation time here in a moment, as soon as this meeting's over. Okay, a couple things we're going to talk about tonight. The first off is we had a recent workshop, as everyone is aware of, and the focus of that was sustainable management criteria. So I thought we'd take a few moments here to let Lisa sort of brief us on the outcome of that, feedback we've got, results of polls, and that kind of thing. And then we'll move on to the ad hoc committee debriefing and sort of take some time to talk about the path moving forward for developing GSP. So Lisa, I'll let you have a go.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. Good evening, everybody. So everybody was at the workshop, but we have had some stakeholder engagement ad hoc committee meeting in between. And so I want to share with you some of the thoughts we had at that meeting, and also open it up to the board for further feedback about the meeting. And thank you. I really appreciate what we already heard about the meeting format, because we had some questions about that. And I'm glad to hear that we're getting some more input as a result of the kind of the educational component of the last workshop. So we'll look forward to that coming in. We had about 20 people attending this meeting, and we conducted 2 polls, and I'll put the results up. Oh, I think I need Tony to unshare before I can share. Thanks, Tony. Okay. Okay, so the first poll was kind of a poll to get a sense of who attended the meeting, and we had the results of this show up during the meeting, but I will just quickly review it. We had 16 people responding. We had representation from both basins and beyond, and we had a mix of groundwater interests representatives with the majority agricultural and then environmental. So we had a good diversity. More than half of the people had attended the first workshop, which was good. We're getting repeat customers. And this was interesting that everybody had at least heard of these terms before the meeting, and a good portion of them had a good understanding. So people are educated. And we've got about more than half that were already part of the Pumpers Association. And it seems that our email and mail or regular customers from this board meeting are also returning. So that was the introductory poll we took at the beginning. And then the poll we took at the end, we haven't shown the results yet to the full board. So this is what we got in terms of the evaluation. Again, 16 people responded, and we got a good feedback in terms of people gaining an understanding of these criteria and how they're used in the groundwater sustainability plan, and that people felt they did have ample opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. Perhaps that somewhat, those 3 people who felt somewhat maybe reflect what Director Kimball was saying about wanting to be able to speak. So we can talk about that a little bit more. People felt their questions were answered, and they're all comfortable with Zoom. But yet, there are a good portion of people who would prefer that we go back to in person once we are able to. So I'll stop sharing if everybody has seen that, and just see if there's any questions on that before we talk about some other aspects of the meeting.
Any questions?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
I mean, 16 people, is that a fair number, representative number, or I mean, it just seems like not very many people.
We had 20 people who attended, so Are you talking about in terms of the percentage who responded to the poll or the overall participation?
The overall participation.
Yeah.
And where does that
we were, yeah, we're about half of what we were from the first workshop, but as I understand it, and please, correct me if I'm wrong, but typically prior public meetings might have only consisted of 10 to 15 people. So our first workshop on Zoom really got a big response with 45. And then this time we got 20. And we did in the ad hoc committee talk about that a little bit, try to understand, was it that more people are interested in the overview and maybe less so in the specifics as we move forward? Is it because people are just tired of being on Zoom? People have, conflicting time interests. So yeah, would love to hear further thoughts on that. We did have a suggestion of perhaps alternate forms of outreach. Director, Mennigan suggested possibly some surveys. So yeah, would love to hear input on how to improve attendance. We did have one suggestion that when we do our outreach, we really need to make sure that people understand why these meetings, are worthwhile for them to attend, what they'll be able to get out of it. So I'd love to hear any other ideas about that.
Gordon, a related comment that I would have is I think, unfortunately, that's really poor participation and not good representation. And a lot of the people who I expected to be there were not there. And, it's a tough time. We all have exceptional challenges now, especially in the ag industry, between COVID constraints, weather, etc. And you know what? After people have been working hard through weekends and long days, the last thing they want to do is sit down to a Zoom meeting. So it's a challenge. We've got really important stuff that people have to be aware of, and we absolutely need their input. But dragging them to a meeting now is very challenging.
And Lisa, I was sort of wondering, in your world, is this typical, and what should we be concerned? I know how to fill a room or fill a Zoom meeting, and that is we send a notice and saying we may be thinking about cutting, restricting your ability to pump water, or water cutbacks, and we'll have a room. The trouble is they'll all be angry.
Well, either that or they're all lawyers.
Yeah. But how are we? Is it something we should be concerned about? And also in terms of DWR and stakeholder outreach.
I did speak with some colleagues working in other basins, because the sense I'm starting to get is that these initial workshops are really, they're slanted more towards educational, and we're starting and provide opportunity for input. And I'm glad to hear that the education part is going to spark some input, even if it didn't come during that meeting. But I was starting to think that we're really going to get the bulk of the input once we have the actual draft that people are reviewing. They might respond more rather than when we're kind of in this GSP development stage. Now, our goal is to get them earlier in the development so that once they see the draft, they will have already participated, will have some ownership. It won't be the first time they're seeing it or a surprise. So one idea that we might put out there is that if we're having problems getting people coming to us, maybe we can go to them. Maybe there are other meetings that are already going on that people are attending anyway that we can try to have some presentations at, have various board members, go to those meetings and present. I'm seeing a head shake.
Before COVID, you might have.
Just a thought, yeah.
Lisa, on that note, so what is the percentage of people that we would think would be good? Do we have a goal? We can say that we know that the pumpers are represented here by their stakeholders, so is the environmental If they're really contrasting in the ideology of what the members on the board are stating, then maybe more will show up. So I'm trying to understand, is 10 good? I mean, out of how many of our members that are pumpers, what percent is showing up? Is it 0.001%? Is it, you know, what does it mean to be a stakeholder outreach, I guess, from DWR's standpoint? So when they come back to us and say, oh, you had great stakeholder engagement, you had 10 people every day. Or, you know,
Yeah.
what is it? How do we calculate that?
I don't believe there's a quantitative measure of how many people actually participated. I think it's more demonstrating that we took every effort, we took an active approach to encourage participation, you know, by all the interests. So we've reached out,
Okay, because from what I've seen in the 4 years of groundwater, is that, for example, Fox Canyon, there were some people that would show up, but it really got going when they had the data, like you were saying. So then it's like, oh wait, I have 30 days and I didn't know, and all this kind of stuff. And then, oh, wait, I need this and I need that. And we're probably going to do that. We can educate as much as we possibly can, but know that there are going to be people that come in and say that. So like, I appreciate the pumpers actually talking about this in their meeting and then submitting a letter. I'm really excited to talk about that. And I'm sure, you know, maybe Fillmore is going to do that. Maybe Candace is they're going to go back to their meetings and talk about things and then represent their processes too. So maybe we need to make sure that that's filtered in when we hear things.
Yeah,
And
there might be.
I would just add, you know, when we did our GDE workshop, we had quite considerable, like, good participation. There were definitely over 75 folks with regards to the environmental focus. But when you come down to like the smaller community scale, when we had our Piru talk, water talk earlier in March before COVID, we only got about 15 people. But for the size of Piru, that was actually not a bad turnout if you look at how their community council meetings are attended. And then the other thing is about who those people are. You know, if those are the people that go out into their community again and spread the word further. And we, you know, we felt, even though it was like a 15-person attendance, we had the right types of people at that meeting. Now, that said, I did extensive outreach to environmental folks, and as much as we had 20 people attend our second workshop and a quarter of them were environmental, there were definitely folks that I had extended invitations to that I was disappointed hadn't attended. You know, that I did want to have there and have their input at this point. Because it is concerning that you're only going to get that feedback and that engagement once the draft plan is out there for circulation. And then, you know, how do you address that when you're up against a timeline? So, I mean, the only thing that I think I can do at this point as an environmental rep is to bring everybody that, you know, follow up on my GDA webinar and the people that I invited, and provide a forum for us to have those brainstorming sessions. Because when we in our ad hoc committee, we discussed, like, how about if you had tabling workshop events around certain sustainable management criteria where it's focused. And I think, you know, like, if we do that for GDEs around surface groundwater interactions and groundwater elevation, and, you know, that's specifically focused, then you can kind of unpack particular issues. And I don't even know if we're going to be able to do that necessarily with special board meetings. And I think that's where the responsibility also comes back on our shoulders as directors to do that focused effort outside of this forum.
Right, and
that information.
Right, and I want to remind people, we have 2,000 population for Piru, total people. And we have 15,800 people for Fillmore. And so how many pumpers associated, that's quite a smaller number. So I just want to make sure that it's not 850,000 people and so forth when we're looking statistics wise.
But that, yeah, but I mean, that said, the city of Fillmore is reliant on groundwater. So even if you aren't a pumper, you're a city resident, it is still, you know, it should still be a concern and warrant engagement. I don't know, maybe there are some ways that the city of Fillmore can also use their outreach and television and platforms to get the information out there to residents.
Okay, anyone else?
I think there will always be a challenge getting feedback from people who don't have direct contact with the wells. Unfortunately, most people don't know and don't care where their water comes from, which is not.
And I mean, that's it. That's part of the water talks. It's like, where does your water come from? Do you know where your water comes from? I mean, that's pretty much the information we're going to be sharing next Wednesday. Is like, are you aware that your water is groundwater dependent and this process is going on? And so, you know, with regards to the outreach to folks that aren't ag pumpers, I think it's important to be sharing this flyer so we're getting those other stakeholders at the water talk at the very least.
It would be better if everybody understood that exactly in the whole system, just the way water works in the valley. And Lake Piru isn't just for fishing for bass and boating. It's there for a whole different purpose.
But the unfortunate truth is that as long as it comes out of their tap and they're not being restricted, it's hard to get people to take time from the rest of their life to worry about something that's not a problem or that they have all that they need. So.
Okay. All right. Anything else? I know we got to keep this moving.
Thank you.
I have one other thought, and I got via chat a message from a public attendee. So I don't know if you want to wait for that for later.
No, go ahead. We can open, if
Okay.
you're done, Lisa, we can ask the public comments.
Oh, well, I have a few more. So one other suggestion is that if we're going to have the recording on the website, we can also mention to constituents that if you missed the meeting, it's not too late to watch it on demand, and feel free to, you know, submit your comments and questions after you've seen it. So one more idea. Okay, so I'm just going to get through a little bit more of what I was going to discuss, and then I'll mention the one comment we have from the public so far. So in terms of the input that we received, as I mentioned before, we mostly got questions, which was good, helped people understand. And then we got one comment about suggesting that the criteria include one related to riparian forest water availability and sustainability of historic wet and dry stream flows. But we'll look forward to additional input from the letters that were discussed before. So when the stakeholder engagement and the sustainable management criteria committees met, we talked a little bit in each about kind of what went well at the meeting and what we might want to change. At the committee, we got a response basically that the webinar format people like that format because it allowed with people writing questions that were kind of thought out, and the Q&A feature enabled us to organize those comments, and the screen was a little clearer with just the panelist video. But there was a question about the fact that attendees couldn't see the other attendees who were present, and then that would be something positive. It's either in the in the participant list, they weren't able to see them. And there was a question about whether or not we'd have an option to have attendee video showing videos as well as the panelist video. So Eva, Zach, and I chatted a little bit, and looking at the features in our current Zoom webinar platform, those aren't options if we stick with the webinar, in terms of having the video. But to Director Kimball's question, we could allow people to talk. We could open that up for everybody. You know, in addition to people raising their hand and we call on them, we can have everybody have the option to mute and unmute themselves. So that is something we could do if we stick with this format. But that's definitely a question we wanted to put out to the board in terms of planning the next meeting. So we can either talk about that now or when we get, you know, to the item 4B. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to discuss. In terms of outreach, the committee felt that we should continue mailing, and that was, you know, that was worth doing. So I think that's about it from the report on the prior workshop. The one public comment that's in the chat is that poor participation might be because the previous meeting was so technical and dense.
Okay.
That's it for me. So
the public comment you had?
That's the one that I see in the chat that Eva forwarded to me.
Okay. Is there any other public comment?
Nope.
None?
Nothing
Any
showing.
raised hands that need to speak? Nope, I don't see anything. Okay, any other questions from Lisa? Then it's back to Tony, or? No?
Just a comment that I would make. I got good feedback from the people I talked to. I was impressed by the way the polling went and the technology. I thought Lisa and Tony did a great job, and all the staff did a great job putting together that meeting. All we needed was more people.
Just
and one thing to consider in the future, if I think maybe one of the reasons for the format that was used is just in case there were hundreds of people, so we could not be overwhelmed. That doesn't seem to be a problem right now. So maybe we could use a more flexible format.
Agreed. All right, Tony, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the second bullet you see here on the screen. A little bit of discussion with the ad hoc committee, and you've heard some of their debriefing on the workshop too, and discussion of the path forward. And so the last ad hoc committee meeting, we dove into the input from the workshop a lot, you know, and we took into consideration a lot of the guidance and discussions with the ad hoc, and you know, we've had some discussions at the board in general about SMCs and that kind of thing, and that's how we got to the ad hoc committee being engaged to take a deeper dive into some of those things. And as we were pouring through our progress on these things and the feedback we got from the workshop, there was a little bit of a feeling, I think, that we need to give more specifics out to the public for them to interact with. And we also were very sensitive to the GSP development timeline. And so one of the concepts that was tossed out was to have the technical team retreat and over the next few weeks prepare a draft set of SMCs that would then be brought back to stakeholders and the full board for that matter for comment, review, chewing on. At least it's a straw man to get things going and might speed up the development of various items within the GSP timeline. And so that's one of the things that we're looking for board input tonight is, do you like that idea? Is that something that you think has merit? I think one of the things that the ad hoc committee struggled with, and it's perfectly normal, I've seen it in other committees, is when you look at SMCs, at the various indicators, their MTs and MOs, et cetera, on a one-by-one basis, you miss the interdependencies between them. So for example, changes in groundwater storage are related to elevation, but so is subsidence, and so is, to a certain degree, maybe GDEs as the surface water interaction indicator. So it's helpful, I think, if you put all those together into a more cohesive package and give an example of how all of those might fit together. It doesn't mean they're cast in stone by any stretch of the imagination, but it just says, here's a way that we could look at the whole package together, and here's what it would mean for the basins, for the stakeholders in the basins. And so we thought about this a little bit more post the ad hoc committee meeting, and think that just filling out the matrix and supplying that is not a totally satisfactory effort there. There needs to be something that backs up the matrix and gives some history, background, logic behind how we came up with whatever undesirable result or MT or MO that we would develop as a straw man. And so I'm calling those little fact sheets, and the fact sheets would include, if you go back to the DWR guidance documents on sustainable management criteria, under each one of the indicators, there's a series of questions there that DWR says, we think you should consider the following kinds of things. And so those are the things that we would focus on in that little fact sheet that provides the rationale for our thinking on a particular item. So we'll answer those questions, but also continue on and propose what an MT might be. Why would we think this value of an MT? Here's our thinking of why that intersection between it for groundwater level and groundwater storage and the others makes sense as an example. So it's more of a holistic view of the sustainable management criteria rather than a one-by-one kind of discussion. So if that's one of the things that we're asking for the board's guidance on tonight, as to whether you like that idea. If the answer is yes, obviously we're coming back to you in the not too distant future with the draft documents for you to chew on and to give us feedback and comment, and for the stakeholders to give us feedback and comment on. And so considering the calendar and things that we have on everybody's busy calendars these days, we were thinking that something around November 5th might be an appropriate time for the board to consider a special board meeting, a single topic meeting of just the SMCs. Then we also talked a little bit about potentially adding some SMC stakeholder comment opportunities at workshop number 3 that we can talk about in item 4B later tonight. So that's kind of where we're at. I guess there's 2 parts to the ask tonight. Is, do you like the approach of having the technical team jump in, roll up their sleeves, and give you a substantive draft straw man matrix for you to look at, you and the stakeholders. When I say you, I mean you and the stakeholders, to look at and to begin that effort. And then secondly, if the answer is yes, is November 5th an appropriate time frame for a special board meeting, a single topic special board meeting? So all of this is consistent with what we've talked about before, and providing opportunities for the technical team to interact with the directors, with the stakeholders and directors to be able to interact and provide multiple opportunities. So if there's workshops, that's fine. If there's sessions at board meetings that talk about SMCs, that's fine too. That's an opportunity for stakeholders to reach out and provide comment also. So just as a refresher, this is the kind of matrix we would be looking to come back to you that's a little more fleshed out. And so indicators down the left, whatever the undesirable result is that we settle on. We've had input from the ad hoc committee on what their kind of thinkings and feelings and their dialogue with various stakeholders might be. And then the metric, which is really the measurement methodology. How are we going to determine whether we're meeting it? And then our MT, minimum threshold, and MOs. So the idea is to try to fill in these question marks, update, and provide some rationale behind the various potential undesirable results there. So I thought I would put the schedule back in here from item 2D, just to give us an idea of what our timelines are looking like to get some sustainable management criteria settled on, and in time to be able to be used to roll into the future scenario modelings, as well as pulling in whatever project or management actions that we think might be appropriate down the road. And obviously there's discussion associated with those as well. So the time is short. It's not horrible, but we need to be making some decisions on sustainable management criteria as rapidly as we realistically can, with understanding that we need input from both the stakeholders and the directors. Our target, to refresh everybody, is a February timeframe for an administrative draft of both of the Basins GSPs. So that's a timeframe where the directors are going to get very large stacks of papers, or let's just say very large PDFs. How about that? To look at and to consider, and then we'll respond to comments, prepare the public review draft, send it out for review over a period of time. And I've just assumed 60 days here. The board's free to elect whatever they choose as appropriate, with a workshop somewhere in the middle there where the stakeholders have had an opportunity to see the documents for a little bit of time. I was thinking they've seen it for a month, something like that. Then we have a workshop, we address questions. They've then got another month to ponder the answers to those questions and anything else that they wish to, and then close out the comments and begin preparing responses to comments. And then it comes back to the board later in the year. So that's kind of the process tonight. We're looking for input from you as to whether you like this idea of having the technical team jumpstart this SMC process and try to pull a straw man together. I think there's advantage to that it helps focus some of the thinking of stakeholders who by and large are lay people and may or may not think in the technical terms that those of us who are in this for a living do. And so having something to look at and to consider, as opposed to having a blank sheet of paper, I don't think that's an appropriate way to go. It's give them some ideas, give them some logic behind those ideas, and then we can talk about alternatives. And we're certainly receptive to alternatives. We just need to know sooner rather than later what those might be. So I'll be quiet now and get some input from you directors.
Tony, I'll jump in. I like the idea of bringing it to the board as a whole. November 5th for me is as good as any. Maybe you can do a quick poll sometime tonight to see if that works for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I think the ad hoc committee has met 7 times. Is it 6 times?
I think we're up to 7 now. Yeah.
And I think if you're looking at SMCs and the 6 different sins of sigma, we're in 100% agreement on 1. So we've had some very good discussion. It's complicated problems. I think you've heard the concerns over the course of 7 meetings, and probably have as good an idea as anybody of what to start out with as far as SMC goes. So I think my personal opinion would be if you put together a matrix and got it to us, the whole board, to look at and come back with comments before a November meeting. I think that's as good as way of any to do it with the time constraints that we have.
Okay. And we did gain a lot of information from the ad hoc committee, and hearing your perspectives on things and the way you're thinking about various various situations and the feedback that you've gotten from some of your stakeholders. Those are all valuable.
So this is, I might add that we had sent that from the stakeholders when Gordon and I got back to our stakeholders. We kind of discussed, we went in depth sharing about what we've been doing on the ad hoc committee, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And that kind of generated this letter that's been sent. Obviously, no one has that in their possession yet, but that kind of was from our stakeholders, what they thought would be kind of a good input and a good approach to getting that. It just to give you an idea, it has a list of several questions that are kind of things to answer so that we would have the information to be able to make decisions, as opposed to kind of just saying, here's where we want to place it. This is more digging some of the questions as to why, so that we could make the decision on where to place MOs and MTs. So I think that that's going to be helpful. I don't know when that gets into anybody's possession for those kind of questions that the technical committee could be working on to provide that. That's at least what our stakeholders were looking at. And I think you'll find it sounded, Tony, what you were mentioning is some of the same questions that were in that the BMPs for sustainable management criteria. Those a lot of these are similar type questions. Right. But I would add the one caveat, maybe the one thing at least I took away from our stakeholders is making sure that whatever we're doing, the goals that we're looking kind of very broadly, very deeply, if you will, pushing the limits, if that's the correct term, not just saying we've seen it happen, therefore we're comfortable moving forward if we stay at that level. More of a question of, well, if we've been good at this water level, how far could we really go? I mean, what could we do? I mean, if it went twice as deep, whatever the number, obviously we have to have some rationale behind it, but there was a desire to say, what's the capacity of this basin, not just because of what we've seen so far, but once we see what its limits are, then we could back up and see what impacts it would be. And if we see what the limits are on subsidence, and we see what the limits are on groundwater elevations and storage and GDE, when we do all of that stuff, or the surface water, groundwater interactions, when we put all those together, their limits, then we can kind of better understand how to make decisions to tighten that up if need be. So that was kind of what I took away, and maybe Gordon can correct it if I missed anything, but that's, I think, was the feeling from a lot of our stakeholders.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I'd like to back up just a little bit too, in that the other thing, or a couple of things we discussed that made me think. One of them is, first of all, Sigma was created because there are groundwater basins that are in real trouble with long-term declining water levels, with subsidence, with real serious issues. And so those basins are guilty. They're guilty of sin, and they're trying not to go to jail. These two basins are quite different. And so I don't think we need to be, first, we don't need to be afraid of being guilty. The second is, I don't think we need to be afraid of submitting a GSP that gets kicked back by DWR asking for more information or more backup or more data. And from my perspective, that's if the full board agrees, that's a philosophy or a thought that we need to pass to our consultants. Because if I was a consultant, my goal would be to prepare a plan as best I could and submit it with the hope that, other than punctuation and typos, that DWR was happy with it, and then my client would think I'd done a good job. I have a feeling that's not going to be the situation here, and at least for me as a director, I'm not afraid of DWR being significantly unhappy with our plan, and asking for more justification. And I think maybe it's the conundrum that we've been talking about for a long time, which is, do we prepare the plan and then get stakeholder feedback, or do we get stakeholder feedback along the way? And these SMCs are where the rubber meets the road. And it's, at least what we've seen, is it's gotten our stakeholders' attention, and they really want to be involved in the discussions. And maybe that's a good thing. It slows the process down now, but maybe would speed up the process next year because they've been involved. But I think after 7 meetings, if the ad hoc committee is still struggling, it may well be that we need to take a different approach. And I made a list of, the ad hoc committee is a way to do it. Fox Canyon did it with the technical advisory committee to get stakeholder input, and that wasn't entirely satisfactory, but maybe that's Fox Canyon. Full board workshops and stakeholder workshops, and then also the stakeholders, their own groups doing input, which we're doing, which Candace is doing, and then bringing back that information. So I think, other than the technical advisory committee, we're doing everything we can think of. And I think a full board workshop, and we would make a real effort to get our stakeholders to come, and if we had a straw man or an idea or a suggestion for everybody to throw darts at, I think that's a really good idea, and will help get stakeholder input and move things along.
Tony, I would just add that I'd be more comfortable if we pushed this on by like just 2 weeks, so that I could actually have a workshop. I don't know if I'd be able to get the people I need and want in a room before November 5th, considering we already at the end of October.
But my concept is that we would have the straw man and associated fact sheets, as I've been calling them, available for a November 5th special board meeting. And that would be an opportunity to have a straw man discussion at that point.
Oh, I was hoping that by November 5th, your technical team would have something that you can present to us, and then we would have a week to digest it or so, and then have that meeting.
Either way, I think is perfectly fine, Director. I think
maybe to the 12th.
If we present on the 5th to you, so you get it, and the stakeholders can get it as well at that time. That's an opportunity for them to hear it at the same time you're hearing about the straw man. And again, it's a straw man. And then we hope to reconvene. Now, let me see. I don't have my calendar right here in front of me. But we do have a board meeting shortly thereafter, right?
On the 19th.
So,
yeah, we have it on the 19th.
Yeah.
So maybe you have your stakeholder meeting and all that on the 12th, and then you have a week to digest, and then we have it on, we present it again on the board meeting on the 19th. So this is going to be multiple sessions. It's not a one and done, sorry. I wish it was, but it's not going to be.
No,
Okay.
no, that would not be a realistic expectation for a one and done. I agree with you there.
I mean, I like that, but no.
That's our measurable objective. Our goal is one and done, but we're not sure we're going to get there.
No.
And are you saying that you would provide the board with the straw man matrix prior to the 5th sometime?
I think prior to the 5th, but not a lot before the 5th, because there's a lot of things to get done between now and then.
Not a lot of time. on the 5th.
Yeah, there's
And-
not a lot of time between now and then to get that done.
and
I
I
can
would,
do it on the 12th.
And you have to do it, what, 72 hours in advance? Yeah.
Well, if it's a special board meeting, I don't know that that applies.
Well,
I'll
that's
leave it
true.
to, I'll
It's
leave it to legal
24
counsel
hours.
to give us that. But thinking that the 5th timeframe would be, we would present it to the board, here's the straw man, here's our rationale for it. It's just a single topic meeting. Stakeholders are there, they can weigh in also, and hopefully would weigh in also at that meeting. And then understanding everyone won't have the opportunity to fully digest everything. And so we come back at the next board meeting or at a yet determined time and solicit some more comments and some more discussion of it.
I can't do the 5th, but I can do the 12th.
In that scenario, would the letter that has been sent by the pumpers associations, would that be available for Tony and his team that they could be looking at incorporating in that for that as stakeholder input?
Yes, I forwarded the letter to them today. So,
Okay.
and everybody should have it shortly after this meeting.
and Tony Morgan, I would agree and support, I'll say, Gordon's philosophy of how to put together a report for DWR. I don't mind having something coming back with red marks on it. Wouldn't be insulted. But I just think we have to be very careful with the SMCs. And it's a lot of the input that I'm getting from local stakeholders is we've got basically healthy basins. We've went through our pumps, our wells, our farms, everything we're doing went through the worst drought in recent history.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing quite well now. So obviously water levels or whatever criteria we're looking at from that time don't necessarily indicate any sort of undesirable results because we're back to where we were or better. So as I said, I don't mind having my term paper coming back with some red marks on it.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, I was just looking at November 12th.
Tony,
is not a, go ahead, Lisa. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just wondering if we should fold into this scheduling conversation the idea that we were going to also have the third stakeholder workshop also during that first half of November. So if we wanted to fold that in for efficiency, so perhaps the meeting where we're presenting, we would combine that with that third stakeholder workshop, which will be on the groundwater model.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the 9th for that, weren't we?
Yes.
That was one idea, but now that we're combining it, I mean, if the 9th works for both functions, I think it makes sense to combine that presentation. Well, I don't know if that makes it a formal board meeting as opposed to a stakeholder workshop, but if there's some way we could combine the functions so that people aren't coming, week after week, we do have room in the agenda for the that groundwater model workshop. We could definitely combine it with the presentation on this draft criteria if you would like.
I would assume that well, the time for that, it's not going to be like 2 hours because you got other topics in that workshop. I mean, you're looking at a calendar off to the side here while we're talking. So if people got the single topic board meeting on the 5th, they're going to get it all in a let's say a 2-hour window. Okay. Then they come back a few days later, which is not very many days later, on Monday the 9th, for example, and they get the opportunity to ask more questions at that point. I mean, there could be a quick summary of what we presented a few days before that, but an opportunity for them to comment more, ask more questions after they've had a few days to chew on it and ponder it a little bit. Is that kind of what we're envisioning?
I'm confused. The only thing on my calendar is a 3 o'clock stakeholder engagement ad hoc committee meeting.
Yeah, same.
So that's not the full
Yeah.
board.
No, that was just that monthly meeting, which is actually to prepare for the December workshop, but we could also use it as a last minute prep. This meeting, the stakeholder workshop would be in the evening. The next item, we're going to try to get that date set, but I'm jumping the gun just so the whole plan works.
Okay.
Got it.
My comment or my thought is, as important as the groundwater model is technically, it's it's the hydrogeologists and the technical people, the engineers are going to be really interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
The SMCs have really gotten the stakeholders' attention. I think now is the time to, if we're trying to get stakeholder input, now's the time to do that, and maybe do the groundwater model later. Maybe when we have some runs with results and we can show how it's being used, it would be more interesting to the stakeholders than just the technical aspects of it.
I think that's a good thought, Gordon. The groundwater modeling is absolutely critical to the whole process, but stakeholders are not as maybe don't have as much need for that as getting in with the SMCs.
Yeah. So our overall schedule calls for a December workshop as well that was going to talk about future conditions, projects, and management actions. So we could try to roll in the model result into that workshop as one option. There is the original plan for the November workshop included a technical session to respond to some requests we got to get more information about the model input parameters so that could be reviewed earlier before the model runs occur. So that was part of the reason for putting that in November.
How about having instead of, well, how about having an invitation meeting or something where not the public stakeholders, but the technical people who might be interested are invited to a more specific focused meeting, as opposed to a general stakeholder meeting for the technical
like a technical forum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, I like that. Because when we're talking about attendance, I was going to say would probably be even smaller than last time. And the question came up in our ad hoc committee meeting, was it worth, did it warrant a whole workshop? There is that part for the layperson, but that could come, once we've got the criteria at the next meeting. So we could divide, once I show the agenda, you'll understand that more, but we could divide up the technical part into a separate technical forum, and then we can have the lay part that was describing the model and the water budget as part of the as part of the December meeting. And so that November would just be dedicated to sustainable management criteria.
Well, Lisa, a question on the people who are interested in the technical aspects. I mean, not including the experts on United staff, it's probably only 2 or 3 people. I wanted to say 1 or 2.
Maybe we could ask who's here tonight if they want to raise their hand if they're interested in the technical model discussion, just as a quick indication.
Well, I think the one person who'd be very interested, I don't think is oh, there he is. Never mind.
Yeah, he's there. Brian's there. Yeah, maybe the water modeling, if you guys are still working on it, it gets postponed to December. Because I mean, you only have 2 weeks. You've got the 5th, the 12th, and the 9th is our board meeting. I personally can't be there on the 5th. You guys can have the meeting, or you could do it on the 12th and have a technical thing with the SMC. And then you bring the SMC back on the 19th. The 26th is Thanksgiving, so you lose that time. And then I would suggest, Lisa, that if you're suggesting that we're supposed to put another workshop in December, that we nail that down right now, because time just flies.
Yeah. I like the idea of focusing in November on SMCs, especially while we have the pumpers engaged in the discussion. I think we should take advantage of that while people are interested. And then we can also have our outreach to environmental folks and wrap that into the process. Because this really is like the crux of it.
Yep. And it doesn't mean that the groundwater modeling is not keep going, because I know they have tons of work to do, right, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, either of those proposals work for us. I think there's some merits to doing the SMCs before further explanation of the modeling, but we're happy to accommodate either schedule.
Okay, so it's 6:20, so we better get to this.
So what would we like to do? Do we want to move the potential special board meeting from the 5th of November to another date? We're making the brash assumption that that's still okay.
It's okay with me. I'd be the only one that's not there, I think. Can everyone else attend? Maybe a thumbs up? Yes?
No, I have a VCOG admin meeting.
Okay, so Tim won't be able to go and I won't be able to go. Glenn will be, Ed, Gordon. Candace, would you be? I'm sorry, you're on mute. I'm learning to read lips.
Yeah, I can make the 5th, but I can also make the 12th. So if we have more people there on the 12th, you know.
Me too.
Tim, can you be there on the 12th?
I cannot make the 12th. I have another GSA board meeting from 2 to 6 that day.
Okay.
Would the 9th work?
Well, wait a minute. So 2 to 6, can you do a 6 o'clock on the 12th? I mean, because we're Zooming, we just pop on from one to the other. I just came from EDC.
Hang on. I think you're breaking up, Kelly. I'm having a hard time hearing what you're saying.
I'm glad you find my humor. Thank you. Now we get to the crust of it.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So we're talking about having a special board meeting and then having a workshop on SMCs all before the November 19th board meeting? Or
it would be one meeting.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can we just have that one meeting?
Well, yeah, the one, as long as the board's okay with having the one meeting where the board hasn't previewed what's presented.
What are you talking about, Lisa?
I think Tony Morgan said he have the straw poll matrix for the board sometime prior to that. A few days prior to that is, I think, what he said.
Has to be sent in 2 hours.
If we got the straw man by the 5th and then had the meeting on the 12th and then came back to a board meeting once everyone's molded over for the 19th.
Tony can't do the 12th. What about the 9th for the meeting? Oh, it's not enough days if you only get it on the 5th. Okay.
How about the 10th? What's the 10th?
That's Veterans Day.
Yes, that's the 11th is Veterans Day, is the Wednesday. The 10th, I have board meetings, but whatever. I always have meetings.
So anyway, I think we
City Council.
do.
And you don't want a Friday meeting. I mean, that would be super exciting.
The 13th?
All right.
Appropriate?
Can we do it on Veterans Day or no? We're still working, but.
I think most of it are working. Okay, well, so the 5th is out.
5th is out or in?
I don't know.
It sounded like the 5th was the date.
I don't either.
It sounded like the 5th was the date that the straw man draft would be sent to the board.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Can we do the 4th? Wednesday the 4th?
There you go.
I can do Wednesday the 4th.
Going to do a poll here. Oh no, Tim, you need to raise your hand, Tim. Can't
Tim,
see.
can you do it? You did. Candace? Okay, 4th it is.
I put
Woo,
a thumbs up.
Oh, you got the double thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Way
so
more-
what are we doing on the 4th?
Wednesday the 4th is our meeting.
Maybe we ought to see if Tony Morgan can come.
So Wednesday the 4th. At what time do you want to do that? The usual 5?
Yes,
Why not?
same bat channel.
Okay, Wednesday the 4th, 5 p.m. That's going to be our special board meeting where we're going to present the straw man to the full board and the stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
You just,
one down.
You just lost one day to get the straw man together.
Oh, hush.
Yeah, I felt 2 extra hairs turn gray on my head. I just,
Realize that later tonight, about 3 o'clock in the morning.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we got that. All right, so then this action for 4A is to receive the report. We have provided the direction and we have set the date for November 4th. Is there any other information that you need for this item?
So being that this is a special meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and we're pushing the consultant team to get a product together pretty quickly, I think we should anticipate that the agenda package with some of this information may be pushing the as close as we can to the meeting to allow a better quality product. So, that would be legal counsel. Would that be 24 hours for a special meeting?
Yep, 24 hours is the minimum for special.
Right.
Yeah.
So we being that that's a Wednesday, we'd shoot for getting that agenda package out at a minimum 24 hours ahead of the Wednesday meeting. So will that work for the technical team to get at least some information that people can chew on done by that time?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
And also what you can do is you can post the agenda ahead of time without
Yeah.
all the information. So it's a placeholder.
Right.
So you can do that.
I think
It's an
we
easy
would
agenda.
like to do that, and we would like to call special attention to the fact that this is going to be a substantive SMC discussion, so we can encourage friends and family to participate.
All right. Okay, so we are having a special meeting on November 4th. Any further information in the motion?
So do we have all the follow-up meeting so we'll go straight from the 4th to the 19th? Not we're not talking about ad hoc committee meetings, just full board.
Right.
Correct.
And you guys get to figure that out later. So the motion on the floor is to receive this report. We've provided the direction upon the actions, and we set the special board meeting for November 4th at 5 o'clock. Can I get a motion to approve?
First.
Thank you, Director Megan. And a second?
Second Candace's motion.
Okay, that's McFadden. All right, any further discussion? Eva, roll call, please.
Okay, Director Holmgren,
Yes.
Director Kimball,
Aye.
Chair Long,
Aye.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
Yes.
Director Pace.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. And this rolls us into then the item B, which is our stakeholder workshop. So now that we have that special meeting, we have a workshop. Go for it, Lisa.
2 for 1.
Yeah, oh. So I guess the first, I just want to make sure I understand we're having the special board meeting on the 4th, and we still want to have a workshop after that in November.
I think
for the board meeting, or the special board meeting is going to be kind of combined with the workshop.
If
it's all rolled into one. Okay. Okay.
So
So the
delaying the modeling workshop.
board
right?
and the,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So at the 4th, the board and the public are going to be reacting to this draft kind of at the same meeting. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
So then the groundwater modeling moves on to December.
Or
right.
Or even when can we is it Brown Act legal to sort of have a technical working group or a technical meeting where those people who are interested in the technical elements of the groundwater model get to have it presented, and then we do a workshop later, maybe January or February, when we have runs where we've used the model and we can show what the model's doing, and then we can present the model and then show how it's used, and leave it to where we're actually using it, and it'll be more interest to the public.
Right now that's, yeah, that would be rolling that into the December workshop.
When are we going to have model runs that'll
Yeah, Tony, do you mind bringing up the schedule?
Yeah.
Part of that will depend on when we get all the information about future conditions in.
Right.
So
I think that could be January or February, in a way. I don't remember the month, but
I mean, and part of it is, on those conditions, they are educated guesses.
Yeah.
We're going to do as thorough job as we can with those things that we can quantify. You should be seeing the schedule pop up there momentarily again.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I've gotten things from the city of Fillmore, and they say, well, hey, we got an urban water management plan. It looks out 20 years. Beyond that, we're just going to make the assumption that things are going to continue on, pretty much status quo beyond that, because they don't have any other ideas. They don't have any other crystal ball that's any clearer than any of us. So that's kind of the assumptions we're going to be making going forward. And if the pumpers associations can get together and say, you know what, we think pumping is going to be about the same, or we think it's going to, there's going to be climate change and we're going to shift crops. We think pumping is going to be 15% less, 10% less. Pick a number. It's all an educated guess. And then, even if you say the number of acreage of avocados is going to decrease, well, we can back into a number of what that might mean for pumping into the basin. If you say avocados are going to go down, but row crops are going to go up, or something else is going to go up, then we can make some of those educated assumptions as to what that would be, and then it'll all be outlined in the plan as to the assumptions that were made in those out years where it's really, really difficult to really put together something that has a lot of meat behind it to back it up.
Tony, just so you know, Farm Executive Director from Farm Bureau is back from vacation, so we're in communication now.
Okay, very good. Just let me know possible dates or however you want to do it. If you want me there, or if you just want to do the communication yourself, that's fine too.
I'll do communication. He's got information, and I think what you'll get is a digital report.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so if anyone's looking at their calendar, November 4th is a special meeting we're doing SMC. November 19th is our regular board meeting, which we can always talk about water modeling, touch on it. Then then you have Thanksgiving, and then you have 2 weeks after and then December 17th. After December 17th, you got 2 weeks out of vacations for people because of holidays. Yeah. Your next meeting is January 21st. What I'm looking at here is you could do technically a workshop model either January 7th, which would give you time, or the week before the board meeting, which is January 14th. I'm seeing on your modeling here that the GW modeling documentation available is until January 21st. So doing that modeling in the first week or two of January, would that work for you or us?
To clarify, the documentation is there by the end of the year.
Okay.
So that's January 2021 versus December 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No problem. So the idea is to get the documentation by the end of the year. And obviously we're going to need time to roll that all into the administrative draft of the document. So if we push workshops out into January or February timeframe, we might have to start considering about pushing back the administrative draft date.
Well, that's why I'm saying either January 7th or January 14th.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anyone has those dates that would be available, because I don't believe December 7th or December is going to work, either the 3rd or the 10th if you're looking at dates. Unless you want to do like December 2nd for a modeling.
That's not good for me.
Every date you mentioned is okay for me. Chair Long, the problem in the ag world, the weeks around Christmases and holidays, it's staying up at night with frost protection work.
Okay, so just even saying that tells me January. Because we need our stakeholders to show up.
It's colder in January.
Oh, bugger. We haven't done blankets yet.
If you serve hot coffee, and you'll have everybody there.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone want to suggest any dates if you're looking at the calendar?
I can do after December 7th.
Okay, like December 9th?
Yeah.
Yep.
We could do December 9th.
That's a united board meeting, but I can just do what we tried to get Tony to do and jump off of one meeting and onto another.
Because that would be at 5 o'clock.
Not my preference.
I know, not mine.
Tony, save me, Tony Emmerich. Come on. Say that won't work.
What about the 10th? I'll save you.
The 10th works for me.
Oh, really good for me.
But that's your AWA, in case anyone's in their AWA, there's some online mixer.
Yeah, in the morning.
I have a friend's board meeting that day.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I have another board meeting on that's my 2 to 6 p.m. board meeting day.
Yeah. So Wednesday the 9th or.
Is the 8th your board meeting, Chair Long?
Yeah, I mean, you could do it.
Huh.
But my problem is I am short board members soon once election happens. So I think they're smashing everything in. So I don't get out till really late. Just being truthful. And I'm chair of that. So it's just, you could chair it. You could share this and I'll hop on after. I'm fine with that. We could do the 8th.
That's fine with me.
Why don't we do that? December 8th then.
The 8th, I have city council again.
Oh, darn you. Okay.
I know.
About the 7th. Candace, was it after the 7th when you're available?
Yeah.
Okay, so not on the 7th.
No, I have exams, sorry.
Okay.
Ooh, congratulations. Okay,
About the 11th.
11th is a Friday.
Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, we need people showing up though. That's the problem.
What else? What else are you going to do
yes.
these Friday? Come on.
I know. I'm thinking the 9th.
All
Yeah.
right. That's
Sorry, Aid.
a weak thumbs
I
up.
tried.
It was a medium thumbs up. Okay, so it's water. I mean, Ed, you can pop in when you're done.
So
You want to start it at 6? Did you say earlier was harder on the 9th?
Mm-hmm. We'll just provide virtual coffee at the United Board meeting.
Okay.
Do you want it at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, Ed?
Fine.
Okay.
We've
All
been
right.
doing the other stakeholder workshops at 6 so people could get home from work,
Oh,
but
yeah.
either is fine for me.
Oh, so should we do the 4th
Yeah.
at 6 o'clock too?
the
No.
4th is a special
If you
board
guys
meeting.
feel it'd be easier
Your
for
call.
stakeholders,
Stakeholder on December 9th at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
6th, yeah.
And the topic for that meeting?
Is water modeling
Yeah.
All right.
and water budget. Okay, so thank you for letting me push the dates. It makes me more comfortable. Keep going, Lisa.
okay, so where are we? So I guess tonight we can plan for the special board meeting that's going to be a combined workshop on November 4th on the draft stakeholder management criteria. Clearly, we don't have an agenda for that because we just decided to do it. So I don't know, do we want the ad hoc committee to come up with something, or do you just want the consultant team to?
It's pretty simple agenda.
Yeah.
Right? It's a one item board meeting.
Presentation.
Yep.
So it's a board meeting and then
Okay.
we jump right into that item and we can put whatever niceties you need up front, pledge of allegiance and all that jazz. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward agenda.
So is there a
Yeah.
separate workshop component, or is it really just an expanded public input part of the board meeting?
I envisioned it to be a special board meeting, one agenda item, and stakeholders are there to to offer suggestions, guidance, questions at the same time. It's for the board and stakeholders.
Okay.
And the ad hoc
The
committee has
reason
already discussed.
I'm sorry, Ed.
I said the ad hoc committee has already discussed the concept of a straw matrix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the ad hoc committee has to meet.
Agreed.
The reason I'm asking is because I was trying to, I mean, even if we do it this way, we could still consider this is to try to, rather than just opening it up for broad public reaction, to think through a format or design that might help elicit more specific comments, or, you know, think through the question prompts so we can get more directed or specific input, you know, if there's certain questions that come up, rather than just a broad, you know, kind of what do you think about it?
But
Just something to throw out for you guys to consider.
I would think that it would be board discussion, item by item, followed by public comment for each item.
Agreed. So it would be a special board meeting agenda like we have it. And then the motion item would be sustainable management criteria review and discussion. So it'll be a receive and file. So we'll be talking about it. We'll provide input from the board members and we'll provide input from the stakeholders. And so then you just receive and file that as a motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to do a mailing for this one like we do for the workshop to help boost attendance?
I'm seeing shaking the head. Yes, please.
Okay.
And then in that mailing, we
Okay.
can also say, and there's a special board meeting on December 9th too. You should attend. Save the date.
Oh, I see. For the workshop. Okay, yeah. A mailing for both. Okay, sure. Great. So we wouldn't, in the past, we've needed approval for that expenditure. The mailings cost under $200. And I don't know if you wanted to bother looking at the agenda for the December meeting. I think we could hold that to November. So right now, given that we've changed the plan, I don't have much else to review. We were going to look through the agenda. Oh, the meeting format for our workshops, webinar versus Zoom meeting, but we can revisit that in November if you want, in anticipation of the December meeting.
Do you just want to pull up the December meeting? Do you think, I don't think it'll be changed from what you have.
Sure, I can share, yeah. This is what we had planned. I can just change it to, rather than November. In this example, we had the groundwater model kind of lay discussion and then the technical session all in one. Previously, we had talked about kind of breaking off to a separate technical forum, but we can just keep with this, and then I guess we would be adding, we'd be kind of a month behind in our overall stakeholder workshop. I can put that up if that's helpful. Let's see if I can find that handy, so we can just see the overall impact that we're having on the schedule.
Can we claim COVID?
It's our own schedule, so it's our own schedule. So it's we don't have to explain to anybody but ourselves. Okay. So this is what we had originally planned. The groundwater model and budget was going to be in November, future conditions and projects in December, and then a break until we had the public draft. So it sounds like we're talking about pushing the model to December, and then in January having another meeting on future conditions, potential projects, and management actions.
Right, because if you scoot it up, you've got the SMC above that.
Yeah, so SMC would go here in November. We'd push everything back a month. Tony, okay. Does that work for your overall schedule?
Probably does.
Okay.
Let's say yes for now.
Later.
Okay. Okay, super. So do you want to talk about this question about the workshop format in November?
I
do you want to talk about it now?
I do have a hand up from Brian Bondi, and I apologize, my dog's whining to get food. Brian, did you have a question? Can he be unmuted? There you go.
I think my hand was up from a half hour ago when you asked about technical stuff on the model and whether we wanted to have a technical session on the model, something to that effect. I've sort of forgotten at this point.
Oh, I apologize. I did not see your hand up, but we didn't. Apologize.
Oh no, I'm not complaining. I'm trying to verbalize what I remember. The answer may be surprising. Frankly, I'm less interested in the model, in the details of the model, and more interested in getting information that'll help inform development of the SMCs. I know there's a few memos that are forthcoming about subsidence and GDEs. And, you know, there's a lot of other foundational information that I think is really important to understand when we're trying to make decisions about GDs. So if you're asking about what the technical interests are, at least from my perspective, those types of things I think are critical path and needed sooner rather than later. I can wait on the model, but you know, if I'm asked to give my clients input on the SMCs, I need the foundational information, and you're going to see a big list of questions in the letter.
Okay.
You know, from my perspective, that's the most important information, technical information that needs to get out there for us to chew on, to use Tony's term. Thank you.
Okay, so can I ask you a question on that? So then November 4th, we're moving it as quickly as possible. So you would be okay with that?
It's the board's process. You know, I don't want to pass judgment. My sense is that there'll be a lot of unanswered technical questions that I would have. So, you know, just from my perspective, I'm struggling to understand. I mean, I understand the utility of a straw man, but I'm also struggling with not having the technical information that's going to underlie those recommendations, at least packaged in a way that can be reviewed. So I think, you know, we should move forward and do what we can, but I think there's going to be a lot of questions about the basis for those recommendations.
Right.
And the technical basis. And so I'm probably sounding like a broken record at this point, but somebody asked my opinion, so that's it.
I did. And so the reason why I'm asking is because I want those that are listening and that we're creating our meetings to make sure that we know that on the 4th, we'll be getting this information, but note that on the 19th with our board meeting, there'll be more information and we'll need to be discussing it. And then we'll probably have to be discussing it on the 17th of the board meeting. And we might even have to discuss it on January 21st. So it's the first of many steps in which we're having this discussion. And I want to make sure I ask you that because I want to make sure it's clear for everybody that we know that it is work in progress.
Yeah, I understand work in progress. It's just, you know, if we haven't characterized the things that we're trying to make decisions about, I just don't know how we make decisions. And so, you know, and I'm talking about basic stuff like, you know, we're going to be talking about impacts to GDEs and depletion of interconnected surface water.
Right.
You know, just to make it simple examples, you know, where are the GDEs? What are they? Are they in areas where we would be concerned? Why would we be concerned? Where is groundwater, surface water connected? How does that change over time? Are there beneficial users of surface water that we need to be concerned about? Who are they? Where are they? How would they be impacted? You know, those are fundamental things that I think we'd like to understand in order to be making decisions about what's significant, unreasonable, and how to those types of impacts.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that also, since you do represent several groups, that the groundwater modeling, then we can really focus more on the SMC and knowing that the groundwater is coming in December, which is in alignment. So I like that. Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comments? I always want to make sure we get that. No? Okay. So then I'm hearing on this is the motion is to have our stakeholder workshop for groundwater modeling on December 9th at 6 o'clock. And are there any comments on the draft agenda that Lisa had provided? Okay, and hearing none. And then there was a thumbs up for the mailer invitation for the pumpers, that we would do that. So those are the three motion. That would be the motion, is the November 9th stakeholder workshop. The agenda looks great, Lisa, great job. And the invitation would go out to the pumpers. Can I get a motion to approve?
Are we going to roll the special board meeting into that motion too?
No, that was in the last motion. We already
Okay.
did that one.
My motion's next.
No, it's just a lot of similar conversations. So this one's on 4B. That would be the motion for this one.
I would move to approve the expenditure for the mailings. as
Okay.
well.
And thank you. And can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. It's been first and second. Any further discussions? Eva, please, roll call.
Director Holmgren,
Yes.
Director Kimball,
Aye.
Chair Long,
Aye.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Menigan,
Yes.
Director Pace.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you. The motion is unanimous. Thank you for everyone for thinking deeply about how do we best serve our constituents on these items. That was good. Okay, the next item we have is the amendment to agreement with Daniel Stevenson Association to assist with the monitoring wells project. Tony Emmerich, do you want to take this, or do you want? I figure
Yes,
you
I
might
do,
as well.
Chair Long. Staff is proposing a little bit under $20,000 amendment to the NW Stevens and Associates contract for assistance in some of the setup for the monitoring wells. This is going to be a cooperative venture between Dan Detmer and his team at United and the NW Stevens team. At least that's the proposal. And so they're at this point, we have some good ideas of where these wells would be. We have an alternative suggestion to our original concept, which would be doing one nested monitoring well and perhaps several shallower wells. So we're going to need to do a little bit of homework on where those are, where the data gaps or how they would fill the data gaps. And we intend to get right on that soon, because especially if it's multiple wells, it's going to take us a bit of time to negotiate the access and long-term easements for those. So we need to get on it. And if you recall, the grant pays for a good chunk of these wells. And so, we want construction to be occurring in the summertime for one or more of these wells. So we're requesting an amendment. This is covered by the current budget for the monitoring wells, and our work plan included getting these wells sited and getting the bids out for the drilling and being ready for the next fiscal year.
Okay. Are there any questions on the contract as written and the cost associated? There was an outline, there's an exhibit. Is there any public comment on this item? I remembered. No, I don't see anything. Okay, if not, unmute your mic now. All right, so the motion is to approve the amendment to the agreement for DBS&A and approve the budget associated. So it's the contract and the budget.
I'll make a motion to approve amendment number 1 to professional services agreement number 209-01-18-DBSA and make that change to the budget.
Thank you very much. It's been first by Director McFadden. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Director Pace seconds it. Any further questions? Okay, and hearing none. Eva?
Director Holmgren,
Yes.
Director Kimball, Chair Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Yes.
Director Menigan,
Yes.
Director Pace.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, so that motion is approved unanimously. Scott, please, thank you very much for all the work that you guys are doing for us and keeping us legal and legit. We appreciate that always. And is there any further topics for the board discussions? We've got a lot going on with the SMC and water modeling. I trust that they will set up the technical committee to start those discussions, and then we'll also have that Pumper's letter sent to all of us, and that'll be in the meeting information as well. And then if there's any billing information, if that needs to be come in, if you could do that too. And then for a future agenda, to have United come and talk to us about what the water projects for next year, or next year talk about their water projects for going on. I think that's important. All right, well, with that, I am at 7:01, guys. We did great. 2 hours and 1 minute. I'd like to say congratulations to all of you. And we will adjourn to our next meeting, which is November 4th. And we will see you then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Even if you're still there.